Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to the Evexia webinar series. Our topic for tonight is Healing Your Practice Part 1, Decision Fatigue. My name is Joanne Iverson. I'm the Director of Client Relations for Evexia Diagnostics and will be your host for this evening. Tonight, I have the distinct pleasure of being joined by two exciting guests, James Maskell and Seth Conger, who will be our presenters for this webinar. James Maskell is on a mission to flatten the curve of healthcare costs. He has spent the past decade innovating at the cross-section of functional medicine and community. To that end, he created the Functional Forum, the world's largest integrative medicine conference with record-setting participation online in growing physician communities worldwide. His organization and best-selling book on the same name, Evolution of Medicine, prepares health professionals for this new era of personalized participatory medicine. In 2017, James founded New Health, an innovative medical cost-sharing company that serves as an alternative to health insurance for health-conscious consumers. Joining James is Seth Conger, who has been a business leader and innovator in the functional medicine space since 2013, including leading a seven-figure practice to a successful exit, being published for his team's work in reversing cognitive decline and creating the first venture-funded startup in the Alzheimer space, taking a functional approach to health improvement and disease process reversal. Before his time in the health promotion industry, Seth worked for the largest global event marketing company, creating and supporting major campaigns for multinational brands. As always, joining us tonight will be Dr. Wayne Sedano, our Director of Clinical Support and Education at Evexia Diagnostics. Additionally, Dr. Sedano is the Director of Integrative Medicine Education for the College of Integrative Medicine and lectures and teachers internationally. Before we begin, just a bit of housekeeping. We encourage participation. So if you have a question, you may submit your questions in the questions field in the right-hand area of the interface. We will answer submitted questions towards the end of this presentation. If your questions are not answered this evening, you will surely receive an answer by email within a day or two. Without further delay, I will now turn the webinar over to James and Seth.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Great to be here and excited to be with all of you here, wherever you are this evening. And I'm excited for this. This is part one of a four-part series that we're going to be delivering over the rest of the year. And we want to start with something that I know hits to the root of some of the dysfunction that we see in functional and integrated medicine practices, and that is decision fatigue. And we're going to be jumping into that today. So, hold on to your horses. All right, here we go. So I know that a lot of doctors arrive in functional medicine due to burnout, and yet, we are seeing a high rate of burnout in functional medicine as well. And so just wanted to share some initial stats. This is if you look on the right here, top factors physicians cite for how pandemic has affected their careers: unsustainable burnout and stress. On the left, you can see the percentage of physicians experiencing burnout symptoms by year. It's going up, and you see a sharp uptick there during the pandemic. So, ultimately, all of medicine is experiencing burnout. And that is just a fact of life. Now, many practitioners come to functional medicine to try and avoid that, and that's what we wanted to talk about here today. What is driving the physician burnout? One is production line medicine. So having no autonomy, no meaning, and not much purpose, can really lead to practitioners feeling not that they don't want to come to work and they don't want to participate. I think we've all felt the pain of health tech 1.0, which is that the first generation of health technology was created for billing and not for care. And so, if you speak to doctors, particularly in conventional medicine, they'll just tell you that it's a lot of checking boxes, and they don't really get to spend the time with patients face to face in the kind of sort of energy that they were expecting when they went through medical school. And the third and probably most critical piece is moral injury. Right? I think so many doctors just become aware that they are not helping their patients to get healthier in conventional medicine. And this is one of the big reasons why doctors come to functional medicine, to feel alignment with a type of medicine that is getting patients to a point where they have self-efficacy, where they don't need anything else, where they're independent of the medical system. And that's the goal of many practices, is to really get people well. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, that's your goal too. And we're gonna speak into that. But I would just say that, what we're noticing more and more, and maybe put in the comments if you're resonating with this, if you felt this, a certain level of fatigue with delivering functional medicine. Decision fatigue, and we'll talk about that. So many decisions to be made about every patient, you as the clinician making all of those decisions. If this resonates, or if you've experienced this, feel free to put it in the chat so that we can understand and we can read them as we go through here. The typical practice that I speak to over the years is spending most of their time fighting fires, right? Different things are coming up, and every day it's something else. And so their job is to try and fight whatever fires are coming in that day, but without a real strategy to solve those problems at the root cause. And this is turning into what I would call functional burnout. And ultimately, the book that I wrote, The Evolution of Medicine, was about using this opportunity of burnout in conventional medicine to make it easy for doctors to come in and start a low overhead practice. And it's been great to see the number of doctors coming to functional integrated medicine continue to grow. But we are dealing with this sort of functional burnout. And what we're going to do tonight is to talk about, where does that come from and what can we do about it? So again, if you have experienced symptoms of functional burnout, put it in the chat. We'd love to hear your experience with this. The reason why we have functional burnout is that if you practice individualized medicine, almost every decision that can be made in the practice can be individualized, right? You don't want to practice cookie cutter medicine. You don't want to do it the same for everyone. You get into the mindset of individualized medicine. And so here's a list, a non-complete list, by the way, of all the things that you could individualize. Well, you could individualize the supplements, right? What supplements do you put people on? What the dosage is, when they take them, how they take them, that's individualized. The lab tests. Well, this person has this kind of condition, so they need this, this, and this. Another person has this condition and they need this, this, and this. The lifestyle recommendations are individualized. The behavior changes are individualized. The diet parts are individualized. When the patient is going to return, are you coming back in 2 weeks? Are you coming back in 4 weeks? Are you coming back in 6 weeks? What part of that is individualized? The frequency of business and the patient's flow. The patient flow. Does this sound familiar? Is this your practice? You bring in a patient and you have to make decisions on all of these things on the first appointment. If this is your practice, put your hand up and let us know, because this is what I see as the majority of functional medicine practices, integrated medicine practices around the country. And I just want to say, it's a trap. It's a trap to individualize all of these things across all patients, because this can only lead to decision fatigue, where ultimately you're making so many choices about everything. One, you can't leave, because who else is going to make all those decisions? And you can't leave the business, you can't let it go, you have to be there all the time. But also, hopefully you're feeling what we're feeling from this stock image, just the overwhelm of all of this. And so I'm really excited today to bring in with me my friend Seth Conger. If you came to our webinar that we did looking at tracking outcomes in 2024, we're going to be diving deeper over the next year into a number of issues that are plaguing the practice, and decision fatigue is the first one. So Seth, Seth mentioned in his bio, Seth launched and prepared for exit and exited a pretty significant functional medicine practice. And Seth, I know that this topic, like what part of your practice can be systematized, is something that is something that you've found yourself involved in very critically now for almost a decade.
Yeah, thanks, James, and thanks for the setup there. I want to kind of double click on a couple points, which is which is the burnout and stress. And as I think you so aptly called it, functional burnout, right? So many practitioners get out of the system and they get out of conventional medicine so that they can practice on their own terms. And sometimes the pendulum swings a little far, right? So from standards of care that are built for the masses, we go to hyper-individualization, which all of a sudden we believe that is going to get the highest outcome, and in some cases it does. But then all of a sudden that causes the burnout and stress within the own practice, and then practitioners end up actually coming to a point where they're not even enjoying their own work that they're doing any longer in their own business. So there's actually some simple ways to get ahead of this, and one of the themes I'm going to be talking about tonight is just the ability to get proactive, right? If you're a practitioner listening to this, and if your patients were coming to you and they were proactive about their health, you would have far less patients. In fact, we would have far less sick people in this country, across the world, if people are actually proactive about their health. So we see the same thing in the health of a business, right? We see most practitioner business owners end up in a place where they are all of a sudden being reactive about their business. So their business is actually seeing some chronic issues and systemic issues across the board because of a reactive nature for that. And it's because nobody handed you a blueprint in the first place, just like nobody handed your patients a blueprint to their health, which is why they come to see you. So think of us as the business practitioners who are here to give you a blueprint of how you can systemize the both back end of your business through fulfillment and service delivery, and then also the front end of your business and even the operations. So James, let's hop on over to the next slide. And what we'll see here, we're going to start on what I call the back end or back of the house, right? So this is the service. This is the delivery of your services. And just as James showed the original slide with all of these areas that we are individualizing, what I want to share is that many of these can actually be systematized. We don't necessarily take the time to sit down and plot out for the 80% of the people that are coming in through the front door, what could I be doing that is going to work for them? And even the small things can make a big benefit, right? So you may be working with somebody through a point of care solution that may last 3 months, 6 months, even 12 months, but you want to continue working with them. So creating maintenance protocols, a baseline maintenance protocol or a bundle for your supplements is one easy thing that is just to set it and forget it when they graduate out of that program or that first point of care. You can even create baseline protocols for individuals in your main areas of care. So that could be gut repair, it could be detox, it could be, overall, ensuring that their body has what it needs with the minerals and all of the other pieces, right? So there's probably in 80% of the cases, there are some supplements that you want everybody to have. Instead of sitting down and trying to explain every single one and trying to sell each one every single time, or your staff doing that, you can just create those protocols or bundles. It's that simple, right? And that may seem like a very simple, small thing, but when we're talking about systemization, it's really a lot of small things that add up into a much bigger overall system, right? Where your whole team is on board and your clients are on board with exactly what you're delivering. So think of these as small things all leading up to a lot of time saved, a lot of effort and energy saved from both you and your team. Lab panels, same thing, right? Evexia makes this really easy for you by already having some functional lab panels laid out. They have cardio lab panels, they have gut lab panels, they have so many different things laid out. And you can go in and you can customize those to make it really easy. But if you're going in and adding them one at a time for every single person, you're creating that decision fatigue for yourself. Now with lifestyle recommendations, this is a whole next level, because with supplements, that may be a 1 or 2 time thing. Labs, again, beginning, maybe middle and end of your program. If you're collecting good data, you're running those labs again at the end and reporting on it. But the lifestyle recommendations, this can go on and on and on, right? So if an individual is coming to you and you don't have an ability to send them home with materials, digital materials, or paper materials that is going to give them all the information and education they need for a baseline understanding of behavior, nutrition, exercise, stress reduction, even environmental aspects, then you're putting yourself or your staff in a situation where they're having to say basically the same things or 80% of the same things over and over again every time somebody new comes into your office, or it's not being delivered at all. And you're missing an opportunity to connect on a deeper level with your patient, to give them information that is going to allow them to get a better outcome at the end of the day. Really, and this is something that James will talk about when we jump into what Vibility does, is we're trying to allow the patient to have a 24/7 connection with you without that direct contact, right? So it's an educational curriculum on the back end that they can be watching on their phone, at home on their desktop, listening to while they're in their car, so that they feel like that service is being provided in all the time, rather than just when they're one-on-one in the office with you. And doing that with a trusted source or building your own curriculum allows you to cease making that decision every single time, setting it and having it out there to ensure that you're going to be getting that better outcome. Now, another step further from that is your patient flow, right? What are your practitioners doing in your office? What are your health coaches doing in your office? What are your nurses or your MAs or others, right? What are the roles and responsibilities of each one of your service members who is providing that service back to the patient? Do they know exactly what they're doing at what time? And do they have a flow of the patient's chart? So what is a typical patient flow from the first time that they come in to the last time that they graduate from your program or an ongoing membership or the annual visit or whatever you have in your specific practice? Really detailing this and diagramming this out is extremely helpful for you, for your staff, and also for the patient to understand, this is what I do next, and then I do this, and then I do this, right? It gives them the path, shows them the path, and gives them those breadcrumbs ahead of time so that they can follow it successfully. Because if you're asking your patient to constantly make decisions about what they're supposed to be doing next, they're also going to have that decision fatigue while they're trying to heal. The next piece of this is some feedback mechanisms, right? So we want to constantly have that feedback loop to improve our systems. So data gathering is the #1 best way to do this. You can do that with objective data, and we actually ran our entire last webinar specifically on this. If you haven't seen that, we dive pretty deep into different areas of data gathering between labs and clinical scales and a number of other elements that you can be tracking to not only show and prove the outcome, but also to improve your systems, right? So the data gathering is really important with the objective symptom or the objective measures, symptoms of your patient, and also their overall satisfaction and their feedback, right? This is the only way that you're truly going to know how you're doing and if you are meeting that initial promise that you've made to your patient of where they're going to get from working with you. So I've found that so many practices don't go to this level of actually collecting the data or collecting the feedback, looking at it, analyzing it, and going back to their team saying, hey, this is what we're being told, here's how we can improve. So this is really the piece on the service end, right? This is how we systematize the service. And this would be if you are in a program model. There's many different business models. You can have programs, you can have memberships, you can have fee for service. Just for simplicity's sake, this is what a 6-month program may look like, all the way from the beginning when you have a prospect who is yet to commit to working with you. You see that in pre-education and a one-on-one evaluation there, through the enrollment, they're paying, do their intake forms, order their labs through Evexia. They may start their viability education at that point. Then you have your office visits, right? We're delivering supplements, all of these pieces. This turns into a checklist for your team where they can put somebody's name on the top and very quickly just go through and say, yep, they ordered their labs, started viability, we did the cooking class, we did the group health coaching appointment, and you know that you are delivering on the program elements that are going to ensure at least a baseline of success and outcome at the end of the day, and you don't have to make decisions about it.
Can I just say one thing I wanted to add in here, Seth, is, one of the benefits of having a pre-organized patient journey that a patient, agrees to at the beginning, is that ultimately, even if you were to just systematize the first 2 months of the patient journey, that still gives you 4 months for much more flexibility. Ultimately, when one of the things that we've seen is that you can still deliver extremely individualized medicine with a systematized front end to be able to do the 80-20 work of patient care. And I think that's what I get excited about when I see that. And one of the things that is a problem with fee for service, and we spoke about this in the last webinar too, is that with fee for service, you don't really know where people are going to end up. You hope they're going to take the recommendations and show up for the next appointment. But I've worked in a clinic that did fee for service, and there was thousands of files on the wall, and we had no idea where those people were. Did they move out of state? Did they die? There's no way to keep track of them. Ultimately, the beauty of either a membership or a program like this is you have a predictable future plan that everyone's agreed to, that they know what their participation is, they know what the doctors and the practitioner is going to do, and everyone's clear on their part of the process.
Yeah, James, thanks for bringing that up, because I really think that the model is the first piece of systemization in your business, right? If you are in that fee for service, you are automatically in a unpredictable model where you do not predictably know when that person's going to come back and what they're going to need that next time. That model may work well for primary care. It doesn't work that great when we're talking about chronic disease reversal or many of the things that we do in functional and integrative medicine, right? We need more predictability, and we need a stronger commitment from the patient that they are going to be with you for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whether that is in a program or a membership, so that then you can lay out a journey like this. That's the first step of the systemization, where it's really challenging to do any of the other pieces if you don't have that model in place in the first place. So there's other things that you can systematize, right? So we talked about the service delivery, and I want to focus a little bit of time on operations. So operations is kind of the catch-all and the most forgotten area of business. If you remember back to when you created a new business, and maybe there are some attendees who are just thinking about creating a new business here, you are extremely focused on bringing in new customers, making sure those customers are willing to pay for the product that you have, and ensuring that you can deliver that product or service, right? We call that, the industry term for that is called product market fit. So product market fit just means that you have a product or a service that the market, your prospects, your customers want and are willing to pay for. Once you have product market fit and you have a sustainable amount of people coming through the door, you can start thinking about other things. But until that point, really all you're concerned with is, how am I gaining new customers and can I service these customers? So for the first year, two, whenever, right, of your business, you kind of forget about operations. You hire who you need to hire, usually Jack or Jills of all trades, who can answer the phones and submit labs and fulfill supplement orders and do your bookkeeping and are whizzes with your technology. And we don't really think about anything systematized in our business until we get to a point where we say, oh gosh, this doesn't feel right anymore. It feels like we're back in chaotic startup mode. And it's because you don't have those systems in the back end of your business. So welcome operations, all right? So operations, when we're talking about systematizing this, again, when you're in that early stage startup mode, before you have that product market fit, it doesn't actually make sense to over systematize. If you over systematize, all you're going to do is slow yourself down, and you'll have to change those systems pretty rapidly as you change your service and product offerings and how you're selling those different pieces. If you're fee for service and you're trying to transfer over to programs or memberships, then your systems on the back end are going to really creak and start to groan when you're making that transition. So operations kind of come in once you have that product market fit. But the key to sustainable growth from that point forward is really systematizing the back end of your business. So this is hiring, onboarding, and training, right? No longer should we be hiring reactively. Oh my gosh, everybody's overwhelmed. We need somebody. We're going to take, some roles and responsibilities from this person and this person and this person and this person and throw another one in. Or we're going to hire yet another wellness concierge who is going to share the same roles and responsibilities with 3 other people inside our office. What we want to do at this point is actually project out about a year and say, what are our goals for the end of the year? Revenue, profit, our own time, right? Owner's time and availability, and what we want to focus and work on, where we'd like to be by then, how many new patients or how many members do we need to achieve that? And then what does the team and what does the organizational chart look like in order to actually achieve that, right? We call that a future org chart. A future org chart can then turn into a hiring plan. And a hiring plan gives you exactly who you need to hire, what that person is going to do, in what priority, and when you need to hire them based on milestones that you're going to hit, right? This is called proactive hiring and proactive operations. It's really the base of that. And once you get into that flow, all of a sudden it doesn't feel like chaos anymore. And growth does not feel like headaches or constant change. It feels like predictable, planned growth, which is what everybody would really want. Now in this, with the hiring, there is onboarding and training, right? So many people are reactively hiring because they desperately need somebody in their office right now. They skip the onboarding process. Onboarding is, here's how you use our EMR, and these are the other people in the front desk, get to know them, and here's our HR platform where you get paid and you're off. We run a 1-month onboarding and training process at Vibility and Freedom Practice Coaching, because it takes that amount of time and attention to ensure that that person understands your mission, vision, and values. They understand your operational structures. They understand what everybody else does in your business, right? All of these pieces are so important when you're delivering a high quality service to individuals who are desperate for the outcome that they want and need. So onboarding and training becomes now a proactive piece of ensuring that you have the right people who are trained moving in the right direction. The next piece of this is measurement, right? So if the first part is the hiring, onboarding, and training, now it's the measurement and management of those team members. So we feel like performance reviews are a big corporate thing, right? That is kind of icky, like, performance reviews, we don't want to do these. But if you're not doing regular reviews and regular one-on-one meetings with direct reports or the individual that you manage or your manager manages, then you're really missing an opportunity for not only empowerment of that individual in their growth path and their career path, but to correct little things when they're still little things, right? If you're not having these meetings and these performance reviews, you end up getting to a place where you don't know how you got there, and you end up having to let somebody go, or they quit and you don't know that they're going to quit because you're not actually measuring what's going on with your people. So we do this with culture measurement. We do anonymous culture measurement every single quarter to understand, do people feel safe here? Do they feel like they're getting great guidance and empowerment from their manager? Do they feel that their workload is adequate? Is it too much or too little? What do they believe that we're missing as a company, right? We do anonymous feedback forms. It's a little bit harder if you have 2 or 3 people on your team. We have 40, so it's a little bit easier to be anonymous there. But then we also do one-on-one performance reviews with every single individual in the business, whether that is the CEO or all the way down to assistants. And we do that because it's really important and critical for that feedback loop. So those are 2 areas where you can get extremely proactive with your team. KPI measurement, right? Measurement of what is important. I think of KPIs as business health, money, time, and then your team member and your patient satisfaction. This is absolutely key for measuring and then getting that feedback loop. Then your internal technology. How can you systematize this to create automations that actually work for you? So your workspace, medical records, et cetera, et cetera. Project management is a whole other topic, but that's how you grow your business instead of just coming up with new ideas and launching them and greenlighting them and maybe not finishing them. We'll be doing an entire webinar on shiny object syndrome, and we'll be talking about project management during that. And then finally, what most people think about when they're talking about systemization is SOPs, or standard operating procedures. And SOPs are really kind of the last piece you want to develop in this overall proactive nature of systematizing operations. So James, and we can kind of go back and forth on this, but the holistic benefits of this: systematized patient flow, right? Sales, what your sales process looks like so that people are being pre-educated about coming in, so that when they come in, they know exactly what they're getting into and what type of program that they have. Onboarding for your team members, even onboarding for your patients. The behavior change element and that curriculum that I know you're going to be getting to, programs and memberships, and then systematized hiring and team management. All of those areas turn your business into a proactive nature. And what does that get you? It leads to predictable revenue, predictable patient outcomes, predictable team dynamics, and then sustainable and predictable growth. And I think that more than anything else as a business owner, that's what you strive for more than anything. Once you get out of that startup mode, you just desperately want predictable growth and predictable outcomes for your business. And you can only get there by systemization.
Yeah, I just want to add, I've been in this world for, I guess, close on 20 years now, and working with practices and doing this and meeting practitioners. And in the last 6 months, I've had the opportunity to spend some time with a group of practitioners that Seth and I and John are working with, who are all what we call in a sort of a legacy stage, where they have $1 million+ of revenue and they've done a lot of this. And it's very interesting to, having spent all this time in functional medicine, to spend time with a group of doctors who have this worked out. When you're sitting next to a doctor and they said, how much is your revenue this month? Oh, it's $230,000. What's next in your business? Well, in 3 months' time, we're going to be at $250,000 a month. And that's when I'm going to hire a head of clinical operations to oversee myself and the 2 other doctors that we have, so that I can get some of that time back. Because right now I'm the head of clinical operations. I have never had those kind of conversations. And that is because there is a level of sophistication and predictability about revenue, about outcomes, about team dynamics, and about growth that is being executed in that. And I just wanted to share that because I think that most practitioners that I meet are in that product market fit stage, where they're trying to work out how to create a product and have fit for it, or they're just grinding out that product, right? They're not necessarily in a growth stage, they're just in a grind stage, which is seeing patients, day after day without really a plan to have a little bit more systematization and a plan for growth. And that's what systematized looks like. And that's what I wanted to share that, that's really what I think it looks like. And what we wanted to share, I guess, here now is a bit of an insight on what a clinic that we're talking about looks like. And not only what it looks like, but what the different people, on the different seats in the bus do, just so you can get a picture of kind of, maybe as you're listening to this, if this is resonating, where you could be by the end of the year if you started to think about this in a systematizable way.
Yeah, and I think what's important about this is it doesn't have to be a huge business, right, to actually achieve this. So this is a real life blueprint of a practice that is in the Freedom Practice Coaching Legacy group that James was just talking about. This is their organizational chart. They have a total of 5 team members other than themselves, and a marketing agency that is a fractional marketing agency that posts ads for them. And this is what each one of those individuals does, right? Just a few key roles and responsibilities for each person. And that business is able to do $1.5 million in revenue per year with 5 employees outside of the CEO, which is the business owner. Now, the CEO also does see some patients themselves in this particular situation, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be that way, right? So this is kind of that baseline of what is systematized looking like. Everybody knows what they're doing. There is no crossover between roles. Now, some people may be cross-trained to help out in a situation of vacation or a sickness or anything else like that, but they don't have the roles and responsibilities overlaid with each other here. And then we have groups that have scaled all the way up to $6 million, $7 million in revenue with larger teams, but it's not crazy large teams. We're talking 15 people, maybe 16 people, and you just build out the org chart predictably as you grow. And that's how you achieve that sustainable growth without those headaches, without further burnout or stress. James, what we hear a lot when we're talking to practitioners outside of the legacy group, when you and I are at conferences, we hear it was so much easier when it was just me. When it was just me and one front office person, things were fine and they were great. And I kind of want to go back to that. But now I have 7 people on my team and we have ups and downs every other month. And it's really hard. And the only difference is the proactive nature of these systems were not put in place in order to get to that point. There should be no reason why you feel it's more difficult with $3 million in revenue versus $300,000 in revenue. And really, truly, the difference there is those systems were ignored and not put in place as you scaled and as you grew.
Yeah, as I look at this, I see a couple things. So one is, most practitioners, I think, are very fond to look at, office manager and office assistant and possibly health coach, mid-level practitioner. But I just want to focus there on the patient enrollment side, like someone whose job it is to facilitate the patient enrollment. And I think this is such a critical part because, again, like when you're just by yourself, you're doing all of that. But when I've met doctors that have someone in that role who they're in their zone of genius, your life is so much easier because you're taking care of this about outbound setting, discovery calls, owning the relationship, closing them into the program, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that is a big, is a big weight off the shoulders typically of practitioners that don't want to do that, but are forced into it when you're just a one-man show.
And I think, James, real quick on that patient enrollment, people see that role and say, gosh, that is a dream role, but how would I ever find that person? You're not going to find that person reactively. You won't find them when you need them. But if you're proactive about hiring that individual and you're ahead of it, you will find the exact person that you need for the exact role that you need. It's the proactive nature there that actually gets it across the board.
Absolutely. So do you have any questions about this? If you do, please put them in the chat so we can get to this question. I know there's a lot on this slide. There's a lot of data. Is this slide interesting? Is it useful? Is it valuable to understand, what a practice can look like and what the operations look like and who's responsible for what? The other thing that I want to share here is I'm excited, honestly, to see that health coach is included in this because, when we started the Functional Forum 10 years ago, the idea of having a health coach in the practice was not the standard of care, but you do see now the range of places where health coaches are being deployed, not just in functional integrated practices, but all over healthcare, medicine, health creation. That is, a critical role, and having someone who can hold the hand of the patient through through the curriculum, through the implementation of the lifestyle, run the coaching sessions, mission critical. So what is possible when you heal your decision fatigue? Well, this is possible, right? This is a clinic that has healed its decision fatigue, where every patient is going through, a very specific journey. And then the question is how are Evexia and Vibility working together to solve decision fatigue? And I want to come back to this diagram that we showed you here at the beginning. So, you know, ultimately what we see is that in order, and coming back to the last webinar that we did, which was on outcome tracking, you know, one of the key things that every practice needs to do in order to build its long-term viability is to track their outcomes and to show that you can get a consistent experience or a consistent result. And what does that mean? That means tracking data at the beginning and tracking data in the end. And this is one of the reasons why we're excited to be working with Evexia, because Evexia makes it easy to get the functional labs, conventional labs all in one place. And Vibility makes it easy to deliver an episode of care over, you know, 30 days, 60 days, 6 months. And one of the things that we're announcing here tonight, and is an exciting news, is that Vibility and Evexia are now integrated. And so you can actually deploy an episode of care with Vibility and set it up ahead of time, systematize it ahead of time so that you can, for a new patient, deploy them into an episode of Vibility and have the Evexia testing done at the beginning and the end of it. And this is, you know, our effort to practice what we preach and make it easier for practitioners to run a streamlined, organized, and systematized practice. So you can see here on the back end, you could just add a lab order. This is the back end of Vibility here. So Evexia Audience through Vibility, you can pick who is the member. So this would be who the patient name, what is the lab type, and then what panel. So you can see Vibility Basic, Vibility Complete, Vibility Comprehensive, Vibility Hormone Panel. These are some examples. You can create your own. You can, whatever you've got going on in Evexia, you can have going on in Vibility. But this is some of the systematization that we've created to make it easy for you to systematize your patient care. In the back end of Vibility, you'll see here the labs. You can just click top right there and add you know, different Evexia panels through there, and you can then choose. You know, you can see which pieces are in there. So you see this. You know, this lab panel includes, and you see all of the different ones that are there, and then there's the specific pricing that's there. One of the reasons why we're excited about Evexia, when I found out about Evexia in 2016, was just the incredible prices that they were able to get for conventional lab testing. And you can see, you know, see that here. And so in a cash business where you are either a membership or you're doing programs or you're doing cash, you know, that is a huge value add to organize that on behalf of the patients when you understand the sort of depth of the scam of lab testing generally and the pricing of lab testing through insurance. And so this is an all-in-one solution to make it easy for you. And just a reminder for those of you who haven't been on before with us, what Vibility is. It is a white labeled lifestyle medicine lifestyle course with integrated testing and patient reporting. So you choose your relevant lab panel. You know, we are 100% virtual, grounded in lifestyle medicine, delivered in a HIPAA compliant platform. It's built for private cash pay practitioners like you. And the goal is to streamline, save practitioners time and improve health outcomes. It's currently used by 350 clinics across the country. About 35,000 patients have been through the programs, and we're collecting all the data and working together to prove what we're up to. This is some of the outcomes that we see of the 60-day program in Vibility. So imagine, you know, you do a 6-month episode of care, and in the first 2 months this happens, right? Are you going to get a 5-star Google review? Probably, because look, this is the percentage of patients that have these kind of outcomes. So what we're here to do at Vibility is to make it easy for you to deploy a learning curriculum, to, you know, partnered with Evexia to get the labs run around it, and to build the evidence base for you and your practice. Here are some of the just practitioners that we work with, talking about what it's like to work with Vibility. And you know, we're working with a range of practitioners, doctors, and all different types of physicians, and specialty primary care-ish. You know, most practitioners that we're working with are in the business of chronic disease reversal. And that's that's how we like to do. But we are seeing a wider range of practitioners use Vibility as they realize that, you know, putting patients through a definitive, specific episode of care can be a big part of their practice. So this is what's included if you want to find out more and about what we're up to. We have done for you curriculums designed by specialists, program lengths, as I mentioned, 30 to 180 days, real-time progress tracking, automated compliance reminders, meal plans, recipes, shopping lists, multiple dietary plan options. So you can be vegan, you can be AIP, you can be paleo, objective data and clinical scales to prove outcomes, and a coaching interface. We also have upgrades where we have coaches that you can deploy on a per patient basis or a per episode basis, the lab and supplement ordering all integrated in there. And what's most important is that this can be fully customizable and branded specifically for your practice, so that this looks like an extension of your practice. That is what's available now in the digital world, is you can, you know, sort of outsource certain parts of your practice to technology. You can even outsource the coaching part. You know, as Seth mentioned there in the org chart, one question we get from practitioners a lot is, you know, should I hire my own health coach? And maybe Seth, you want to speak to that for a minute, just because, you know, ultimately, I think what I recognize is that getting your own health coach is the dream, and getting there. And that clinic that you showed had 1.5 million in revenue, and it had a full-time coach. But in the meantime, while you're looking for, you know, maybe a part-time coach or something like that, you know, there's some definite benefit to having a coach who knows how to coach through one of these programs.
Yeah, so, you know, it's interesting. I think most practitioners and business owners understand they probably shouldn't be doing their own bookkeeping, and they shouldn't be their own CPA, right? So they hire a fractional accounting agency to work on behalf of them, to dig in when they need to dig in a couple hours a month and do that. Going a little bit further up the food chain, you may have a fractional marketing agency because you don't want to hire a marketing director, a media buyer, a graphic designer, a Google specialist, a meta specialist. You just want to hire a group that's going to go post ads for you to bring new prospects to your door. But a lot of people don't think about fractional service, right? So as part of Vibility, what we realized was delivering programs was really good, but delivering programs with a health coach, and when we were looking at the data, we saw that clinics that had their own health coach were getting significantly better both adherence to the program and better outcomes at the end of the day, right? Because we were looking at all of this data, but we understood that smaller businesses, if you're seeing less than 5 new patients a month, or if you have less than, say, 400 people in your membership, you may not be able to afford a full-time health coach. So that was born fractional health coaching within Vibility. So we actually have health coaches on staff. We have 6 of them who are all trained and certified at the highest level, who actually work with these programs to ensure that your patients are able to get through and get all their questions answered. So again, systematizing exactly what that looks like. And we do that both on a one-on-one basis or in a group atmosphere, depending on how many patients that you have going through, that really allows for the best possible adherence and outcome at the end of the day.
Awesome. And yeah, just to finish up that conversation, why done for you programs, maximize your reach, free up your bandwidth, track your patients automatically, grow your practice, and build patient loyalty. So we are offering a free practice assessment and strategy call to discuss these kind of things and to take a look at the practice, see where you are today. What is the easiest steps that you could take towards systematization? Where do you want to be by the end of the year? And how can we help you get there? We have a range of resources, you know, from the companies like the Vibility and Freedom Practice Coaching, but we also have resources from some of our partners. So Evexia is a great partner when it comes to organizing all the lab tests, but we also have partners for, you know, things that Seth has talked about tonight, like hiring, right? Does it make sense if, you know, to go through a process of hire, you know, what is going to be your hiring process and how are you going to find the operational lead to make your life easy? Those are the kinds of things that we also have answers for through some of our ecosystem partners. Anything you want to share on that, Seth?
Yeah, so, James, when just reflecting on the last slide, right? Maximize your reach, free up bandwidth, grow your practice, track patients automatically, build patient loyalty. That is the definition of systematized, right? And I think that's what we're all trying to achieve. Add on predictable outcomes and predictable revenue for your business, and you've nailed it. You've achieved the holy grail of why you opened a business in the first place, is to have all of those pieces. So really for us with Vibility and Freedom Practice Coaching, we're in the business of providing blueprints that have data from the last decade to back up their success in this space of functional and integrative medicine, of how do you get best patient outcomes, how do you achieve that success, and how do you build a team, build a sales process, build a marketing process, and all of the other areas that allow you to systematize your business and achieve those other elements, not just the predictable revenue and outcomes, but maximizing your reach and your impact, build up your capacity and continue to grow to see more people, and then build up that patient loyalty that's just going to turn into more referrals. So really, we're in the business of systemization, and I hope some of the elements that we presented earlier are going to help on that. But again, model first, right? And if you're still in the fee-for-service space and are looking to switch to memberships or programs, then we have resources and blueprints that are going to help speed that up and get you there a whole lot quicker than attempting to do that on your own. Know what the pricing is right in your market for the right amount of patients that you want to see, for the right types of treatments that you do. All of that stuff has been done many times over. There's no reason to reinvent that wheel. That's on the model side. Also, growing a team, the back end operations and SOPs. What does your team do on a day-to-day basis? It's interesting, James, I'm teaching a management course right now to practice managers of our clients. So there's literally 24 practice managers who are going through this course right now because they were put into that role not necessarily having a whole lot of management background. They had maybe done it here and there, but they hadn't done it to the level of what they need to actually grow the practice on behalf of the owner, rather than just kind of, take things and do them on behalf of the owner. So we're running a whole management course right now to empower those practice managers to systematize their business, do the performance reviews, and be the best empowerers of the entire team. So what we have here and what you'll get to, this will bring you to a landing page that will have both Freedom Practice Coaching and Vibility branding on it, because our business strategists are actually shared across the board, right? We're here to solve problems for practitioners, whether those problems are on service delivery and predictability of outcomes, or whether those problems are on creating revenue and bringing in new patients in the first place. And so that call will be really to understand your biggest challenges and your biggest needs, and then point you in the right direction for the best possible solution for that. So I do encourage you to take that, scan that, and have a free 30, 45-minute call with one of our business strategists who really understands how to grow and scale businesses in this space.
Beautiful. All right, last chance for any questions. Joanne, thank you so much for the opportunity here. We do have some tools here on thoughts here, but yeah, if you want to.
Sure, guys. Yeah, James and Seth, we do have a few questions, so I will throw that out. Comment followed by question. I love the idea of being proactive, but when you don't have a consistent client flow yet, it is difficult to feel like you can proactively hire people. When do you know when you can do this with limited numbers of new clients? I am just getting started, so I would love to be here, but I don't feel like I am yet.
Yeah, so this is the common chicken or the egg problem, right? And when you're moving out of startup mode, it is very challenging to get into proactive hiring mode. So really, that's why when we're working with clients, usually for the first 6-12 months of working with them, we are just focused on predictable new patient flow, right? You have to get that revenue up to a predictable area before you can get proactive about any other place in your business other than your service delivery. So if you're looking at proactivity, but you still don't have the patient flow, I would look at the proactivity in your service area and systematizing that back end model, right? Because that's going to deliver better outcomes, which is going to deliver more referrals, which will help the new patient flow area. But really it is focused on those two areas and predictable new clients. It doesn't have to be perfectly predictable, but enough that is over, to pay for your overhead and allow you to know, okay, I have $5,000 extra. That $5,000 is going to turn into a $60,000 salary. I can now hire a wellness concierge to work with us instead of me answering the phones and doing all the paperwork and scheduling and everything else. So that's the point when you want to start getting predictable about hiring, is after you have that patient flow. And if you don't have resources to help you get new clients, really, book a call and we can talk you through that to give you some strategies specifically of how to streamline your new client flow as well.
Excellent. How about this one? Do you work with practices that accept insurance? What are the potential pathways for a practice to exit insurance and or to initiate membership concierge structures?
Yeah, James, you want to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, historically, we have been focused on moving people into cash-based businesses, but more and more we are working with practices that are, hybrids and are, doing a lot of insurance work, especially at the sort of the higher end in the million plus category, because there's just a lot more that we can do to help. In fact, just like a couple of weeks ago, we're working with a clinic that is in California, about 5.5 million in revenue, about half cash, half insurance. And look, if you're going to go on a journey to change the business model, it's very important to be strategic about it, to think it through, to work out where future revenue is going to come from. How can you let go of one thing to turn on another? It's not something that needs to be done suddenly. It's something that needs to be thought through. But yeah, absolutely. And part of this is an individual assessment as to what's working in the business. And if the insurance thing is working for you, then you should probably keep some or all of it. But you have to dig a little bit to work out whether it's really working, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that the way we look at it is we first try to optimize the model that you're in, right? As long as you're bringing in revenue, right? If you're not bringing in very much revenue and you're really struggling, usually it's a model change first. But if you are bringing in revenue and you're successful, what we try to do is optimize that model first. So optimize your utilization, optimize your team, optimize the patient encounters and billable encounters, other services that you may be able to sell or provide on the back end of that. Once we have that portion of the model, say insurance, right, optimize, then we can start looking at higher margin opportunities for you to start introducing into the business. And we don't want to do too much of this at once because we don't want to overwhelm your team or your client base, but we start looking at things, and it could be a 60-day done for you program with viability, right? That is kind of set it and forget it, that goes out to a number of your list once a year for in January or September when people may want to go through a gut repair and detox. So there's ways to systematize that and slowly move up the chain of higher margin types of models, but we always try to optimize the current model and stabilize the current model first.
I mean, that's really tight right now. I mean, I would say, that's a great point, Seth, is that you can run your practice the way that you do it and add in one high margin service like a twice annual group detox as a way of bringing systematization into your practice while not totally taking the train off the tracks.
Great. I think we have just a few more. I'd love to know more about the progression of scaling, hiring each of those roles. Is there an order of who you should hire first and then next?
That's a great question. So it does depend on the practice. If we're looking at a general functional integrative medicine business that has started at zero and is tending to scale up, usually what you're trying to do is replace the tasks that are lower value for the owner to be doing first, right? So think of this as like a replacement ladder for your own tasks. So the first thing is going to be front desk activities. You don't want to be taking reservations, making schedules, changing schedules around, calling people for reminders for their visits, right? So that's going to be kind of the first piece. The second piece after that is going to be really usually on the service or back end. And this is kind of going to be that health coach role or even a mid-level practitioner to see follow-ups, to track people through their programs, assuming that that program is systematized, so that you can kind of move up to the front and see people in the beginning, the middle, and the end. One of the last things you want to give up, and this depends on your own interest in different roles and responsibilities in the business, but usually owners go out into these new businesses and they do want to have that first meeting with the patient. They do want to have that agreement point and that sales presentation to move them into a program or a membership. And that's a very highly leveraged and valued position. So that's one of the later ones to actually be replaced. And so it's usually front desk, something on the service end, and then you can be looking at operations, practice management, or even on the sales and marketing side. But don't pull yourself out too far away from the business too early. You still want to have your finger on the pulse. We can get into a lot of stuff on scaling, but again, it really does depend on the business. Hopefully that little bit of a blueprint was helpful.
Thanks. Yep. And this is just the last one. I'm just starting out. Do you have a flow chart for a beginner? I assume by scanning the QR code and working with you with a practice assessment and strategy call, that's probably a great step.
You got it. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, one of our business strategists can help you create that flow for your new business and to make sure that you build that business the right way from the beginning. Because there are right and wrong ways to build businesses from the beginning.
Excellent. I don't have any chats, so I've gone through just the rest of the questions. So I think we can just move to the last couple slides and we can just close out the evening.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for being here this evening, and thanks for your participation. We're really excited to come back. This is, as I said, part of a 3-part series that we're going to be doing throughout the year, or 4-part series. Is part 1, decision fatigue. As Seth mentioned, there are other elements of practice, practices that need healing, and we're going to get into those throughout the rest of the year. If you have questions or desires, or if you'd like to see certain topics be hit over the rest of the year, we'd love to hear from you. So please feel free to reach out, and you can set a time with one of our team. And thanks to the Evexia Diagnostics team, we're really excited to be in this partnership. We're seeing great outcomes from the partnership so far. And thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. James, do you want to, or Joanne, would you like to run through the integration portion with Evexia if we have enough time, or should we be calling it at this point?
No, I think that's great. We could certainly run through that. So for anybody to integrate with Vibility, you're going to find that under the tools section on the right-hand side. You're going to go down to EMR integration, and then you will be able to find the Vibility logo towards the bottom of that. So there's a section that you can learn more about that integration. But if you are an Evexia client and you do want to integrate with Vibility, you will click that manage integration, and then you will receive, I guess, an API key and enter it into your Vibility account. And that is really as easy as it is to connect your Evexia account with Vibility.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. And
then this is just, did you have any other comments, guys?
No.
Okay. And again, this is just our last slide. To learn more about Evexia, any questions, you may contact us by email at info@evexiadiagnostics.com or by phone 5 days a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at 888-852-2723. Thank you so much, James and Seth, for this informative presentation. A recording of the webinar will be available by email in the next few days, generally by Friday. We will have the presentation slide deck tomorrow. So if you do want that ahead of time, just reach out to Evexia, chat or info, and either myself or somebody from our team will be able to forward this slide deck over to you. So that's really it. Thank you again for joining us for this webinar event. Until next time, from everyone at Evexia Diagnostics and Viability and Freedom Practice Coaching, stay healthy, stay safe, and we wish you all the best on your pathway to wellness. Good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.